Hello and welcome to my channel. It's Liz from West Star Herbs and West Star Tarot. Today I thought I'd talk a little bit about the intermingling or the meeting of herbs and tarot, two of my great passions. I've actually mentioned a couple times in the past about herbs on my channel, and I've actually had several requests to do some videos on herbs. And so today I thought I would talk a little bit about white pine, one of my favorites. And I'm sitting here with the steaming cup of white pine needle tea from where I live on Cape Cod in Massachusetts on the east coast of the United States. The pine that grows around me is called eastern pine, Pinus strobus. Also, we call it white pine. And white pine as an herbal medicine is very powerful. It's full of antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, anti-mutagenics, huge amounts of vitamin A and vitamin C. In a cup of white pine tea, you get 5 times the amount of vitamin C as you would from one orange. You know, when you think about this climate and what grows here and what happens in the winter, how do you stay healthy? We don't have oranges growing in the back here or in the woods. And before we had grocery stores and truckers to truck our fruits and vegetables from all kinds of tropical places, we didn't have oranges in the winter. So how do we get vitamin C? White pine. It's really quite an amazing plant. It's beautiful. It has spirit. I feel its spirit. It's in my yard. I did bring some in because I made the tea. Here's a little branch right here. And what you do when you make the tea is you pull the needles together like this and then cut them, and even a little bit of the twig. Here's a bigger branch, but this gives you the sense of how it's very graceful and kind of lacy. It's not compact the way many evergreens are. And the fact of the matter is, it's evergreen. It's green all year round. And so it gives medicine to us all year round. And when you live in the Northeast, in New England, in the United States, there's not a lot of fresh medicine for us. We have to pick and harvest things in the fall and dry them or infuse them in oils or tinctures to get the medicine in the winter. But white pine is available to us all winter long. This is a book that I love. It's an herbal book, one of my favorites, Opening Our Wild Hearts to the Healing Herbs by Gail Edwards, and it is a lovely book. In the beginning of this book, she starts off with the trees, honoring the trees, and talking about the trees. And as you can see, on each one of the pages is a green drawing of the herb or plant spirit in question. And she talks here in the book about the history and use of white pine here in the United States and also throughout Europe. But this is a tree or a plant spirit that is considered sacred to many of our native tribes here in the United States. And she goes through and talks about the different groups and tribes of natives, Americans who use and honor white pine. And here she says, as I mentioned too, evergreen pine needles growing in clusters are very high in vitamin C and A and make a nourishing winter tea. Native peoples and early settlers commonly chewed pine needles and so forth. It can prevent and treat scurvy. And of course, scurvy is when there's a lack of vitamin C in the diet. And here in the winter, before we had grocery stores, there was not many options, but white pine tea is really wonderful. And when you make the tea, just inhaling the steam when you take the cover off the pot that you've made it in. It's like you can get a nice infusion or a nice steam for your sinus or your sinuses and congestion. Oh. And the first time I had a cup of white pine tea, I was a little bit skeptical about how it was going to taste, but it tastes great. It's very mild. It's slightly menthol, but it actually has sort of a sweetness to it. White pine this is the pine cone, or this is where the seeds come from. So when this is released, all these pieces would be compact, and then as it warms up, it releases, and the seeds are in here, in these spots, and they're released. I love using pine. It's sacred to me, and I use it in a lot of my spiritual practices, again, year-round, because there just isn't much else around here in the winter that I can go out and pick fresh. And so white pine is really special to me because it's a plant spirit that is available in this time of year. So I have a number of, so why am I talking about herbs on a tarot YouTube channel? Well, first of all, I am an herbalist and a tarotist, but there are several tarot decks and several oracle decks that have plants and herbs and trees and so forth. And so we can use plant spirit medicine in our tarot reading. The first deck that I came across that had herbs was this deck called the Herbal Tarot. This is by Michael Tierra. He's a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. He lives in California, and he created this with, sorry, I don't know the artist's name. Candace Canton was the artist. Here's the guidebook, which I bought separately. And I have had this deck since 1988. I was actually at the International Herb Symposium. It was called something different then, but I don't remember what, in Auburn, Mass. At the time. And I was, in the vendor room, walking around to all the herbalists' tables. And there on Michael Tierra's table was this Herbal Tarot. And I was like, oh my gosh, my two worlds collide. Tarot and herbs. What could be better than that? So I bought the deck, and I love it. It's got nice cardstock. It's kind of a little bit waxy. It's not too shiny. And I just pulled out the cards that dealt with trees. So the medicine wheel or the wheel is slippery elm. The Seven of Cups is juniper. The Death card is elder. Eight of Wands is sassafras. Six of Wands is hawthorn, another one of the herbs I'm working closely with right now. 10 of Wands is prickly ash. 9 of Wands is bayberry bark. And then the Knight of Swords is cherry, wild cherry. And so we can see in these herbal decks there are considerations of trees as well as bushes and shrubs and herbs. And I really like that. The next deck that I got many years after I got the Herbal Tarot was a plant deck, is Soulflower Plant Spirit Oracle deck by Lisa Estabrook. And I love this. It's gorgeous. I've had it several years. You can see it's kind of beat up because I travel with it. And then just this year, I gifted myself at Solstice with Lisa finally finished up her guidebook. But you don't really need the guidebook because on each one of the cards, oh dear, seem to have piles of things going on here. There's a little blurb about the plant. I'm working with, as I said, hawthorn, also rose, and hawthorn is in the rose family, and white pine. Those are the 3 herbs I'm working with. And I'm working with them, taking the teas, the tinctures, and other physical forms, but I've also made a flower essence with rose. And I'm going to try and do one with hawthorn flower in the spring. So white pine medicine is wisdom, according to Lisa. What this says is, like a loving parent, white pine holds you in her embrace so that you feel safe, guarded, and still, and can find the space for quiet reflection, which I think is so perfect for this time of year. We're in February now in the Northern Hemisphere, and so it's deep middle of winter. She helps you tap into the ancient wisdom stored in your heart and release your worries to be absorbed by the earth. So there you can see the pine cone from white pine, and there's the one that I got in my yard. It's a beautiful plant. The next deck that I have that I wanted to talk about that has plant spirits in it is Forces, Flora, and Fauna. Here's the deck by Colleen Hardy, I believe. And this also has, flora. And so there are plants, but there are the trees. This is for the forest. This one is one of my all-time favorite cards. It's moss. But look at that full moon. I love it. Here's birch, linden, apple, oak, the mighty oak, willow. I hope you can see these, and orange. So those are the trees from the Forces, Flora, and Fauna deck. Another one of my favorite plant spirit decks. So recently, it was, I think, May of 2019, the long-awaited, at least by me, and I think many of us in the community, the Herb Crafters Tarot was released. And the artist on this is Joanna Powell Colbert, who is the artist and creator of one of my favorite tarot decks, the Gaian Tarot. And then she worked with Letitia Guthrie, who's an herbalist, to write the guidebook. And this has, again, not just herbs and bushes, but also there are trees. So here we see the chariot cedar. The star is cottonwood. 7 of air, eucalyptus. 4 of fire is elder. And it was the death card in the other herbal deck. 4 of earth, willow. We have linden for the Queen of Pentacles. 9 of earth, apple. 7 of earth, oak. The lovers, hawthorn, the plant I'm working with. The emperor, hemlock. So there are the trees from the Herb Crafters, and also included is my beloved pine. 6 of earth. I'm not sure. Can you? Sorry, can't see that too well, but it's a campfire and there's pine trees in the background. And I just wanted to read a little bit of what Letitia says about this. Ground yourself in community. Share your resources. Your generosity will circle back to you. The soul remains evergreen. Life is generative. Share with friends. Support each other in times of plenty and times of lack. Celebrate. Pine is an evergreen tree that keeps its needles all year, providing medicine, materials for baskets, and shelter for forest creatures. It is a living embodiment of everlasting life. As the pine is gracious with its resources, be generous with those in need. Recognize the bounty in your life. Look for ways to share your abundance with others. And then at the bottom on each one of the cards, there's crafting with whichever the card is. This is the Six of Earth for pine. Walk in a pine forest with friends to release the old and make way for the new. Drink tea from freshly gathered pine needles for renewal and regeneration. I think this is finally cool enough so that I can drink some. Delicious. Another way that I use pine is in rituals and for creating plants, smoke to cleanse and purify and honor the earth. And so I dry it and just keep it in my little cauldron. I'm going to show you what I do with that. And so here's my little cauldron, and you can see the flames are leaping about, but they will soon die out. And then you can see the smoke rising, and you can use that as a way to cast your circle or cleanse and purify the space that you're in, or your sacred tools, or your crystals, whatever needs cleansing and purifying. My most recent herbal deck is called the Magical Herb Oracle, and I've only used it a couple times, so I really don't have too much to say about it. But I look forward to getting to know this deck and working with it, and furthering my relationship with the plant spirits. Let me know if you like hearing more about herbs. I would like to do a series if people are interested, and maybe teach folks a little bit about how to create their own herbal remedies. To me, the herbs, the plants, they're the people's medicine. Yes, there's all kinds of fancy herbs and plants that you can spend a lot of money on, but right here in my yard, pine grows, artemisia, St. John's wort, clover, plantain, dandelion, violet, so many things that I didn't even plant. They just grow here. Mullein, so many plants will just come, and I will ask for a plant to come grow in my yard if I need its particular medicine. And the thing that is so wonderful about the plant spirits is they provide medicine for our physical body, but also for our soul, our spirit, and our mind. And so they heal us on many levels: body, mind, spirit, soul. And I am eternally grateful to the plant spirits. Blessed be.